Natural Habitat Adventures is pleased to be bringing you this webinar today, Botswana's Green Season, Kalahari, Delta, and Beyond. And we're joined today by our guide, not only virtual guide, but also real guide for our Natural Habitat Adventures trips in Botswana, Simon Collier. And at an early age, Simon developed a love and passion for Africa. From the age of 4, in fact, he began his safari experience in the national parks of South Africa, and led by his grandfather, a fanatical birder and naturalist, Simon realized his true passion in life. Simon has dedicated his life to being a guide in Africa. He has quite an illustrious career. His wildlife highlights over the years include gorilla trekking in Rwanda, bearing witness to the migration in the Mara, tracking and finding his first leopard on foot, diving with whale sharks, and experiencing the terrifying beauty of the northern skeleton coast in Namibia. So we are in good hands today as we learn more about all that Botswana has to offer. So Simon, welcome.
Ali, thanks very much, and great to be chatting to everyone in the States and whoever else is connected. I would say good afternoon to all of you, but actually good evening from a very warm, sunny South Africa through today. I'm really, really excited to be chatting to everyone about this spectacular trip that runs through Botswana, and more specifically about the green season in Botswana and what makes this trip so unique and so exciting. So, you know, the first slide, as it shows one of Africa's most magnificent animals. You know, highlighted and tracked down by many, one of the most elusive predators in the world. And Botswana is notorious for not only its great game viewing, but also its fantastic leopard viewing. To give you an idea, you know, the slide that you'll be seeing shortly will basically just give you an insight into exactly where Botswana is. The slightly small highlighted section in southern Africa, Botswana being a landlocked country, it is actually very much a desert-based environment and attracts a very, very small amount of annual rainfall. Most people understand and see Botswana for its natural beauty around the Okavango Delta. Now, this specific trip takes in one of the hidden gems of Botswana, and that is the Kalahari itself. The Kalahari, unbeknownst to most people, fluctuates from rainfall, it fluctuates from game movements, but it really, really is one of the most spectacular places to visit in Botswana. The Delta itself, as I've explained very briefly, is a water-world paradise in a land of sand. It is this unbelievable oasis that streams in from pretty much nowhere and disappears again pretty much into the sands of the Kalahari. And with that abundance of water comes the most amazing wildlife and spectacular game viewing. So the view you can see there is actually a Google image of the Delta in its full flood, which is actually the dry season, the waterways being the darker sections, and obviously the lighter sections being the islands that are formed around these waterways. To give you a brief understanding of where the water comes from, it's actually rainfall that occurs outside of Botswana completely, and in the Angolan highland mountains to the north and northwest of Botswana. This water then runs down off the mountains underground and disappears, and a couple of months later, normally around March, April, pops up just to the north of Botswana and into what is known as this panhandle area, and then flays out and forms what's known as the Kalahari, what's known as the Delta, my apologies. So having a look at the overall map that's popping up now, if you look in the top section, you'll see the blue section being the Delta. A couple of the camps are dotted orange. And at the base of the Delta, there's a small little airplane with the sign or the name Maun being the access point that we use for this trip. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the direction we take through this spectacular 11-day safari, and then take you through each of the highlights from a game viewing perspective on a one-by-one basis. So why the Kalahari? You know, as I said, this time of the year, being December through to March, end of April, is the best time to go into the Kalahari. After a small amount of rain, this alluvial floodplain turns green, And with this flashing green flush of vegetation come all of the antelope species in this area. Unique species like Hemsbok, the springbok antelope that you can see on your screen at the moment, and behind those antelope species, a vast array of unique predators and unique wildlife. So our journey starts in the south of Botswana in this hidden gem, the Kalahari Desert, where we spend 3 magnificent days acclimatizing you to the wonders of the game and safari industry. After our Kalahari expedition and giving you a couple of days to acclimatize to Africa's pace, which is generally slower than the rest of the world, rather an enjoyable pace actually, we take a flight up to the Delta. And now we give you the most extreme contrast, going from what's known as a barren, dry desert climate in the Kalahari, just a short hour's flight away, we're into the most amazing scenery, flying over these channels, these islands that are home to so many different species of wildlife. And this is where your experience will completely change and completely diversify from what you've actually experienced thus far. After the Delta, after spending 3 days in the Delta and really tapping into the water-based experiences of boating, makoros, trying to do a little bit of walking and the actual game drives, we fly further north up to an area called the Linyanti and into one of the most pristine wildlife viewing areas left in the world. This is home to all of Africa's big predators and renowned for its elephant habitat and population. And we spend 3 days exploring this magnificent Linyanti-Savuti area, looking for Africa's big cats, looking for the larger herbivores and the pachyderms like the elephants, and also just making sure we take time to look at some of the smaller aspects of what's happening in Botswana at that time of the year. Remember, as I said, that these trips only generally run between December and end of March, beginning of April. That is when the green season is at its best. We realize that Botswana holds special access and special attention for most, but one of the most unique aspects in this part of the world is getting up to the mighty Zambezi and to Victoria Falls. And so we decided to finish this trip with a 2-day relaxing episode up at the falls, and not only just to see Victoria Falls itself, to experience the mighty Zambezi, which is at its peak at this time of the year, to take in some cultural activities, and also to be able to reminisce and go through pictures and stories with the fantastic guides that you have traveling with you. So let's get stuck into it. From Maun, as I said, we fly into Maun, and from Maun we climb into small aircraft once you've met your guide, who's going to be traveling with you for the entire duration of your trip, and we take about an hour's flight down into Deception Valley, or the Central Kalahari Game Reserve, to Kalahari Plains Camp. Situated in, as I said, Kalahari, this is one of the most unique habitats in the world, and at this time of the year it is untouchable and incomparable to anywhere else for its wildlife viewing. People often ask me, why the Kalahari, why Deception Valley, this area that we explore, this alluvial floodplain? And it's very, very simple. This area used to be, as I said, a riverine system many, many, many centuries ago, and the soil is still extremely fertile. But because of the low annual rainfall, the vegetation is very, very limited. So when those first tiny little drops of rain arrive in November, the grass turns green overnight. The acacia species flourish, the leaves come out in full sprout, all of the bird life comes back into this area, and all of the game through large areas in Botswana rush into this area, into Deception Valley. And I'm talking about giraffe, antelope species, unique predator species, and the larger predators, you know, world-renowned for big black maned lions, for leopard viewing, and even more so for these massive, vast open areas. So the image that will be coming up onto your screen now is a typical afternoon in the Kalahari. And let's distill one myth that's in the area. When we say this is the green season, Botswana only gets a couple of 100 millimeters, so a couple of inches of rain annually. So we have these magnificent, warm, beautiful summer days, and the clouds build in the afternoon. The game gets really, really excited. You can see everything's excited, and there's electricity in the air, and we get a small amount of rain. You know, and a small amount of rain could be 5 or 10 millimeters. And the clouds break up, the sun comes back out, the birds go crazy, the insects are flourishing. It's just the most amazing time to be down in this area. The camp that we stay at, in true style, as Natural Habitat, we always look to try and tag in with the most eco-friendly, conservation-minded areas, destinations, and camps. And Kalahari Plains itself has got a special design to it. The image you can see now is of the actual room area, so these huge mosquito gauze fronts, allowing you to really see the vistas in front of you. And the roof that you can see is actually a sleeping platform. So each one of these rooms has the most amazing sleep-out platform up on top of your room, 100% secure and safe, and you can literally spend the evening sleeping out on your rooftop platform watching the stars. You have not seen stars until you go to the Kalahari and you see stars in the clear night skies. As I said, the camps are very, very eco-sensitive. The Kalahari Plains camp, for example, is 100% solar. It has all of its hot water generated through solar geysers, and all of its water purification is done from an external source. So it's a very, very, very eco-friendly model of what can work in these exceptionally remote areas. Most importantly, on any of these trips, and on this trip alike, is the fact that we take you into wilderness areas. We are not taking you into areas that have fences around them. We're not taking you into camps that have fences around them. We want your experience and the camp to be immersed in wildlife. And so in this image, one of the most amazing cats left in the world, this beautiful image of a cheetah standing out on the floodplain in front of Kalahari Plains. So if you're lucky enough on your trip, the room in the background might be yours. And this would be the sunset scene that you would see, which would be pretty spectacular. The Kalahari is one of the last remaining homes to the Bushman people, and there's still a small collection of Bushman people living traditionally in the greater Kalahari area. And this gives you the opportunity to see and understand and learn how these people survive off the land. So you can go out with the traditional Bushmen, as you can see in this image, on a walk, learn how to hunt, how to gather, how to harvest food, how to source water, and actually get an understanding of how these people have lived for centuries off this land. It's a really, really amazing experience to add into your overall safari. The most specialized species in this area are very different to what we all associate with safaris. So in this image coming up now, you'll see things like foxes up on the left-hand side, honey badgers, the oryx or gemsbok down on the bottom right, and a vast array of the most spectacular wildlife from a bird perspective. So for anyone who's slightly interested in the ornithology department, for those who are interested in birding, the Kalahari is one of the most highly sought-after birding destinations. It obviously doesn't offer you the water birds, but it pretty much offers you a completely different array. So if you're looking to get that birding species count up, don't skip the Kalahari. It's the most amazing destination. So now that we've completely thrown your mind away from the Delta for the last 3 days, and we've given you this desert-based experience that's just going to completely blow your mind, we say goodbye to Kalahari Plains, and we jump back in our small aircraft, normally a 12-seater, and we fly north to a small little camp called Little Vumbura. On this map, you can see it right up in the top section of the Delta itself, in the Vumbura concession. It's a spectacular camp, and this now gives us both land and water experiences. So, as I said to you in the beginning, this will now completely change your perspective. It'll blow your mind when you're flying in off the Kalahari, where it's just pretty much sand and grass and vegetation, and you'll come over that first waterway and that first channel, and you won't believe what you're seeing. It'll just be this mirage of waterways and small islands, and now we tap into what Botswana has been known for so many, many, many years, is the Delta. So getting out on macaws, as you can see in this image, allows you to look at smaller things, the fauna and flora, not just the larger species. Little Vumbura is a beautiful, beautiful little camp that offers you both the opportunity to do land and water-based activities. Normally access to this camp is only by water. So, you'll land at the airstrip and take a short drive to the boating station, and then you'll have to get on a boat and maybe do 3 or 4 minutes by boat to the jetty, where you'll then arrive at camp, completely surrounded by water, non-accessible by vehicles, and that's going to now be your home for the next couple of days. So the main area you can see in this image, a typical evening in Africa, beautiful big blue skies, the sunset in the distance, open-air dining, with the sounds of and smells of Africa completely surrounding you. A really, really cool way to spend a sunset, that's for sure. The rooms and accommodation throughout this trip are nothing short of spectacular. You certainly won't be roughing it by any means. So big, beautiful rooms, full en-suite facilities. People always ask about the bathrooms, so I'll just throw that in. And you can see in this image coming up on screen now your own private balconies or viewing decks where you've got nice, comfy couches, a good place to spend the remaining time in the evening, having a glass of wine, writing in their personal journal, or viewing the pictures that you've taken from your safari the day before. So just really spectacular time. We try and keep you fairly busy. You're out there to see wildlife and enjoy your surroundings, but you will get some downtime in your rooms to put your feet up and actually just really, really soak up the experience. This is your chariot, as I refer to it. So through all of your safaring experiences on this trip, this is the type of vehicle that you'll be going out in on safari. These open Land Rovers are superb vehicles designed to be able to take water right over the front of the vehicle where the windshield is in the front there, and you can see the snorkel on the left, and just ultimately designed for really, really good game viewing in general overview areas. So nice bucket seats, comfortable, easy to get in and out of, and just built for the most rugged terrain. So you'll be in no means you'll be surprised by where these vehicles will take you. Again, one of the biggest aspects of these trips is that you're going to have your specialist guide who's going to travel with you from the moment you arrive in Maun right the way through your experience. He's going to deliver that knowledge, tap into those real interests that you have, and just make sure that by the time your safari finishes, you have had the most unbelievable life-changing experience. Bumbera, as I said, has both land and water. Some of the strongest game viewing in this area, really good for predators, some unique antelope species again, but just that opportunity to hopefully try and see one of these magnificent cats. As I said, they are the most elusive in Africa, although when seeing a picture like this, you sometimes think, well, that doesn't look too hard to see. You'd be amazed how good their camouflage is, the most amazing predators. And hopefully the opportunity to see Africa's largest predator, home to lion, which is always really, really special to see. The big open grasslands and the combination with the floodplains has a very, very good dynamic with predator and animal interaction, and seeing these large predators is something special and quite awe-inspiring. Most of these animals have had some kind of, not habituation, but interaction with vehicles over time, so they no longer see the vehicles as a threat, they're not scared of the vehicles, but they just kind of ignore us and allow us to watch what's happening in their daily lives. And so you might get the opportunity to see the most amazing imagery, as you can see on your screen now. These are actually two males. The one on the right is a very young male. You can see he's got a bit of his mane starting to develop under his throat, and his probably older brother or sibling is probably 6 or 7 years old, almost in his prime, looking to take over the territory. Bumbera, with the water-based activity, as I said, gives you the opportunity to look at species that you wouldn't have seen in the Kalahari, those being one of the most prevalent, something like the hippopotamus. Bottom left of the screen, some of the smaller species. That's a type of frog called a painted reed frog, and you will be blown away by the coloration of these frogs. They go from oranges to whites to blacks to reds to greens, and when you're on those small dugout canoes that you saw in the beginning of the Bumbera section, you can get really, really close to these beautiful, beautiful frogs. Sable antelope down in the bottom right, and one of the owl species up in the top right, making sure we give you a full spectrum of the wildlife in Botswana. Never a dull moment on safari, that's for sure. Going from Bumbera itself after 3 days, we head slightly further north. So if you have a look at this map, there is a square or rectangle in the bottom left with a sign that says the cylinder concession. Basically where the top right corner of that is where Bumbera was, and from there we're then flying up in a northeasterly direction to Savuti, in the Linyanti concession. Now Savuti in the past has been renowned for its large elephant populations, specifically due to the Savuti Channel, which stopped flowing a number of years ago. The channel itself had a couple of water sources, and all of the elephant populations coming out of the Chobe and into the Savuti area had to move down to these restricted water holes. So you got these huge herds of elephants, and over time many documentations on the interaction between these large elephant herds and the big predators like the lion. In the last couple of years, 3 years ago, the channel started flowing for the first time in 30 years. And the most amazing spectacle, flowing all the way down pretty much to Maun, One of the guys I was talking to a couple of years ago was telling me that you can literally boat from the Linyanti swamps down the Savuti Channel past Savuti Camp and right the way through to Maun. Now the channel fluctuates in volume. There is always permanent water there these days, and the elephant population is phenomenal right the way through the year, providing both vegetation and water. So this elephant here obviously is just a little bit unhappy and just voicing her opinion. A little bit of a warning to say I'm happy with the distance that you're at, but certainly an exciting moment on safari when you get to see this magnificent large animal. Savuti is a nice small camp built on the Savuti Channel, as I said. The flight from Vumbura into Savuti is very, very short, probably only 15 or 20 minutes, and from there a very short half-an-hour game drive down into camp. So arrival in camp normally around lunchtime. Check into your beautiful rooms, as you can see in this image. As again, this certainly makes my apartment look like something worth traveling away from. So if this is what you're looking to travel to, this is certainly the place to get to. Beautiful open vistas, the channel in the background, and just the lap of luxury, so much comfort when you've got time to have that afternoon siesta from your early morning starts and late afternoons on safari. The Delta, as I said, has so much to offer, so much variety, so much variance. In this image you can see a giraffe crossing the waterways in the shallow sort of corridors in the Linyanti area. And this is something which is very, very unique and special to see. You don't really get to see this anywhere else in the world. You can see giraffe in a number of places, but animal species crossing waterways and channels, that's when the Delta comes into its own. Savuti, for the last number of years, has been potentially one of the biggest predator attraction areas in the whole of Botswana. So while we'll try and track down predators in the Kalahari and in Vumbura, we hopefully stand a really good chance again in the Savuti area of seeing magnificent predators like the leopard, hopefully like the lion. These are both, very, very unique cats to see. But this area has one specific predator that we don't see in too many other places, and that is probably Africa's most endangered wildlife predator at the moment, one of the most successful hunters out of all of the predators, and one of the most magnificent to see. Used to be known as the painted dog, now known as an African wild dog. Those beautiful large round ears. This one's just come out of either a grooming session or probably out of the water, taken in the summer season. You can see all the beautiful rich green grass in the background. Such amazing, amazing animals. And just really, really, really special to see. So hopefully the Savuti area will deliver the opportunity to see this amazing, amazing species of predator. Always taking into account that there's so much more to see than just the larger animals. So make no mistake, the antelope species, the smaller predator species, and the larger bird life that you can get in this area are vast. This giant eagle owl that you'll see coming up now has those beautiful little pink eyelids, one of the largest owls we get in this area, renowned for catching everything from frogs to small rodents right the way through to actually preying off some smaller bird chicks, even right up to the size of vultures. So unusual to see them sitting out in the open like this one. Most of the time, the other birds and other predators will harass the owls when they're out in the open like this one during the day. And so we tend to see these species, these magnificent large species, out at night towards the end of this superb male lion was involved in a huge territorial challenge. So you never know what's going to be around any corner that you actually might travel to in Botswana. After 3 days of spectacular game viewing activities, sitting around the fire, talking about your experiences, hearing your guides tell you stories, interacting with the local staff, eating too much because we do feed you a lot on these, we take a flight from Savuti up into the top right corner of your screen to Kasane and across into Zambia. This is a very smooth transition. It's quite a lot of fun. Your guide is with you the entire way, so never anything to concern yourself with. And we head towards a beautiful camp called Takalea, which is built on the mighty, mighty Zambezi River. This image you can see now, probably one of the best views from a swimming pool, I would argue, in the world. And you can see the river in the foreground there in 100% full flood. So this time of the year, the Zambezi is at its absolute peak. It's at its best, and you can't think of too many better places to lie and read a book in the comfort of one of these lounges, sip on a cold beer or a gin and tonic, enjoy the swimming pool if you're brave enough, and just watch the river flow by. It's just somewhere really special to spend your last 2 days of safari. The Takalea, the camp, is built in a small national park in Zambia called Mosi-oa-Tunya National Park, home to one of Zambia's only rhino populations, and home to abundance of wildlife from elephant to giraffe to rhino, hyena, and some of the other prevalent game in this area, including zebra, hippo, crocodile, and an abundance of bird life. Built on the Zambezi River, just upstream from Victoria Falls, this area hosts some different activities for you to be able to wind down at the end of your safari, but still give you that wild, crazy feeling that you're just in the middle of Africa. So boating on the Zambezi is pretty much the best way to get around. Offers you game viewing from a completely different, unique perspective. The imagery coming up now of the flat bottom boats that we use, nice and comfy, beautiful shaded areas to make sure that the African sun is not harassing you too much, but getting beautiful and close up to Africa's wildlife. So these elephants are all coming down to drink on the edge of the river, and you can literally just sit there within 15 to 20 feet of them and not impact on them whatsoever. They're happy with where you are. Just literally sit and enjoy them as they carry on within their daily happenings, which is pretty cool to see. One of the most special times on safari, I always say, is at the end of the day, when you've had all of your crazy experiences and you've had a chance to get back to the comforts of your room, have a shower, splash some water on your face, kind of pinch yourself to realize that you are actually in the place that you're in and that you didn't just imagine what you saw on drive, and sit around the fire, as you can see in this image, and listen to everyone's soft stories and tell experiences and listen to what the guide has to say. And this time at Takalea really gives you that opportunity to be able to kind of reminisce over the amazing things that you would have seen and experienced over the last 9 days in Botswana. One of my highlights on my first trip to Takalea was discovering that they had their own pizza oven. Now, this might sound coy to the rest of you, but when you've been out on safari, and certainly as a guide, getting those crazy food types in, like a traditional homemade Zambian-style pizza, is something to behold. And I challenge all of you to try one of these pizzas over lunch or at dinner. The chefs at Takalea, they vow to have the best pizzas in the whole of the Vic Falls, Livingstone, Zambia area. And so please do make sure that you get into one of these pizzas while you're sitting on the edge of the Zambezi. The staff will be highly upset with you if you avoid their delicious pizza cuisine. Takalea, as I said, built in Mosi-oa-Tunya National Park. One of the biggest projects going on at Takalea is actually the rehabilitation of the vegetation in this area. And the reason that's so important is this area was very, very badly damaged with harvesting of wood, as well as the impact from other animal species like elephants. So there's a very, very advanced and developed rehabilitation of vegetation that takes place in and around the camp, right down to you being able to plant your own trees, select the species that you want to plant, log it and GPS it, and when you come back, you can come back and see how your tree's doing. So a really, really amazing aspect, and to know you walked away and left your own not only your own footprints, but also you planted your own small piece of Africa to make sure that it's there for your grandkids, kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids in the future. So make sure you take time to do this amazing experience. You can't go to Vic Falls without seeing the falls. It just doesn't make sense. So on one of the mornings, we'll take you through to Victoria Falls. This time of year is the best time to see the falls. With the summer rains come the might of the Zambezi, and the water comes crashing over Victoria Falls, just a very, very advanced in its length. And while you might be laughing to yourself quietly sitting at your desk or at home in front of a computer with these amazing, beautiful, bright-colored umbrellas, you'll be surprised at how potentially wet you can get from the spray. So we give you these cool ponchos that these two ladies are wearing, as well as an umbrella to keep you semi-dry when you do a tour of the falls. It's a very, very scenic walk. It's not too strenuous. Amazing for photography, and just really, really spectacular to see the falls at this time of the year from either both the Zambian side or the Zimbabwean side. But definitely worthwhile. After the falls, we'll take you into the town of Livingstone, let you explore some of the local markets, do some shopping for those that haven't had any any shopping time over the last 9 days not having withdrawal. Buy some curios for loved ones, buy some souvenirs for yourselves to make sure you never forget your African experience. Before heading back to camp for your afternoon activity, coming out of Takalea, we always suggest you jump onto the river, get onto a boat, enjoy a sundowner with a herd of elephants crossing in front of you. And actually, if you have a look from the left-hand side, the second elephant, or between the two large elephants, you can actually see a very small elephant calf. Amazing to see these creatures crossing even the deepest channels, and all you see is their trunks sticking out the water, almost like a periscope from a submarine. And they'll swim across, move between the different areas, between the different countries, between Zimbabwe and Zambia on the different sides of the river, and in and out of camp. So, you could well have elephants moving right in front of your room while you're sitting enjoying the lap of luxury on your private veranda or balcony or deck. I can guarantee you that every single moment that you're on this experience, it'll hold something unique and different for you. And every single person will take away something different and unique. And hopefully, for every single one of you, your expectations, your hopes and dreams out of your safari will be delivered, matched, and far exceeded. Africa is a special, special place, and the combination in Botswana of doing both the Kalahari, the Delta, the Linyanti-Savuti area, and up into the falls is just the most magical way to see this vast and spectacular landscape. So I'm sure it'll hold spectacular memory for each and every one of you. Make sure you take lots of imagery and pictures. Your guides will always point out the best opportune moments. I also always encourage my guests on safaris to make sure that you don't spend too much time looking through the lens of a camera, so to speak. So make sure that from time to time you put that camera down and actually absorb what you're seeing, take it in, and store that mental image as opposed to just the digital images that we're so attracted to these days. Here's a spectacular sight of Vic Falls, this beautiful rainbow. You can see this is in the height of the summer season by all the green vegetation and the water flowing over. There are additional opportunities and activities within the area, from cultural visits to different ways to see the falls, from helicopters to microlights. And if you chat to the guys on the ground or the teams arranging the trips, they can always advise you on what's best to add in or add on in terms of these different activities. Some very, very important travel dates. As I said, this season is exceptionally limited, running only from December through to March, end of March, beginning of April. And so for 2014, there are four fantastic trips going through into Botswana, into the Kalahari. It's a unique time of the year to go. It's a spectacular time of the year to go, and hopefully it's given you some insight over the last half an hour or 30 minutes as to why to travel into Botswana at this time of the year. People always say to me, and maybe some of you asked this question already, when's the best time to travel? And I think a lot of people will tell you that you can travel into Botswana any time of the year. For me, it's a really simple decision. The diversity of wildlife, the added value of the array of bird life, the greenery, the scenery, the thunderstorms, just everything about the summer season in Botswana, for me, completely sells it. And I would hands down travel into Botswana between December and the end of March, happily, time and time again, just to keep on seeing if I can find those unique species, the bird life, and everything else that it has to offer. So with that in mind, I hope that for most of you out there, I can extend my farewell greetings to you and say I hope to see you in Africa very soon, and hopefully we can share this exceptional sunset image of an elephant in the Delta, which is unique to the rest of the world. You will not see this image anywhere else. So hopefully we'll see you in Africa soon.
Oh, Simon, thank you. What an amazing presentation. So beautiful. Are most of those photos yours?
Some of these are mine, and some are from an array of wildlife photographers that spend countless hours capturing these images and are kind enough to share them with us. So yes, some of them are mine, and some of them are borrowed, begged, borrowed, or stolen from friends and fellow members within the industry. So yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you. Well, there are a lot of good questions, so I just want to jump right in. The one, probably most common question, people are interested in the Jeeps. How many people are in a Jeep, and do you get wet in the Jeeps?
Very, very good question. These groups and these trips are restricted to a maximum of 8 people in a group, and that's for a number of very good reasons. Firstly, a group of 8 allows the guide the opportunity and time to pay attention and special attention to each one of you, allowing him to look at your interests, delve into your philosophies and what you're hoping to see, and really make sure that each and every single guest and potential safari goer has the trip of a lifetime. The second reason is to that size of that vehicle. So each one of these vehicles has 3 rows of seats, and attached to each row there are either 2 or 3 seats, as well as 1 seat up in front. So they are individual bucket seats. They are superbly comfortable. There's a fantastic view from every single one of those locations, and we find that most people that go on these trips, quite enjoy bouncing around and trying out the different spots. So, is it better at the back? Is it better in the middle? What's it like sitting up front next to the guide where you can hear what's going on the radio? So, I encourage you to try out all of the different locations. But, yeah, as I said, these trips run with as few as 1 or 2 guests right the way up to 8. And chances of getting wet from that image that was on there, very, very slim at worst case scenario. Maybe your feet will get wet if you're sitting in front next to the guide and he's crossing a deep channel. This time of the year, probably not too much of a concern. If you do happen to have a small amount of afternoon rain, that canvas top keeps you 80–85% dry, and we do carry the ponchos on the vehicles just in case there's a little bit of extra rain that's coming in the side. So chances of getting wet, unfortunately, are fairly limited, I would say, in these vehicles.
Okay, well, that's good. So another really popular question is about children, and what would be the youngest age you would recommend to go on this trip?
Wow, it's such a good talking point. I always tend to encourage children from the age of 10 or 12 upwards. We do take children younger than that. If we've got a small group or family who are traveling by themselves, it's up to the family to decide. But I would say Africa is a pretty special destination, and anything from 8 upwards, I would always say, is a pretty good age. The guides are really good at looking after kids. On some of these trips, there is a variety of recommended ages, but anything, I'd say anything under 8 is potentially going to be more challenging for the parents to relax and enjoy on longer drives. So 6 to 8 years old upwards is definitely a good go. Anything from 12 upwards is the recommended age, I would say.
Okay, good. All right, let's talk about food. There's a question here about what great local food could we expect to eat at these camps?
I always love this question because I think a lot of people that are interested in trying local food and cuisine don't know the vast array of what they could actually get themselves into. In Botswana, there's everything from local fish species right the way through to a maize meal or porridge-style food source, which is very popular in Africa. And actually, in certain times of the year, specifically in summer, one of the delicacies in this area is a delicacy called a mapani worm, which grows on a specific type of tree called a mapani tree. It is highly sought after. It's very, very nutritious, and there is a vast array of ways that you can cook it and eat it. So your guides will definitely try and track some of those down for you. From that, you can go into the local types of game that you might be seeing. So some of the areas you might be able to try out some of the game species that are farmed organically and very, very correctly done. So you'll get a combination of probably food that you are used to having back home when you go out for dinner to a decent restaurant, right the way through to a vast array of local traditional food types. Morocco is a natural type of spinach. As I said, the mapani worms, maize meal porridge. The list is quite long and quite varied, but you'll definitely come away from Botswana having a closer understanding of cultural types of foods, and still being able to grab in a decent meal that you're probably used to. So there's always a great variety and array on the menus, that's for sure. Okay, well, that sounds like a lot of fun, an adventure in itself. So what about luggage? There are questions about there are questions about whether there are luggage restrictions, and also some requests for some advice on packing. Okay. Look, what's important for everyone to realize is through all of these camps that you're traveling in, there are laundry facilities. So you can have laundry done, which takes a lot of pressure off a lot of people. I think when everyone initially starts packing, they think to themselves, well, if I'm going to be on safari for 12 days and I'm going to be traveling for a couple before and a couple after, I need to take a huge amount of luggage. Not the case in this instance. You can get laundry done at every single one of the camps that you're staying at, which makes a big difference. Ultimately, you actually only need 3 sets of gear, one for one day 1, 2, and 3, and then you can get your set washed again. Luggage is restricted to soft duffel-style bags, and it's restricted to about 44 pounds of luggage. The reason for this is the airplanes that we utilize within Botswana when we're moving to the camps has limited luggage storage. They operate remotely. The luggage storage is small and limited, and so it's important that people abide by the guidelines that are set out in terms of the luggage. What type of gear to bring with you? Safaring should be narrowed down to what I call the onion effect. So pack so that you can layer. And when you start in the morning, it'll be fresh and cool. It'll never be freezing cold at this time of the year. But by 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, you will want to be able to peel down into, I would say, a comfortable pair of outdoor slacks or long trousers, even potentially with zip-off bottoms so that you can turn them into a pair of shorts during the middle of the day. I would say a good pair of walking shoes, nothing too excessive, no need for massive hiking boots, something that's lightweight and comfortable that you can wear all day. And I would also add in a pair of more comfortable lightweight shoes, sandals for ladies, or walking sandals that you can kind of strap on with a Velcro strap are always good. Things like sun cream, compulsory, some nice hats, a big wide brim hat is always really good. And then the compulsories on a packing list are always a camera and a pair of binoculars. Don't go on safari without a small pair of binoculars. You'll be amazed at how often you use them. So those are some of the recommendations. But the packing lists are very, very detailed as well.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. Okay, there's another thing that's on a lot of people's minds, and that is bugs, specifically mosquitoes. Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, with pleasure. Certainly down in the Kalahari, opportunity and chance of seeing a lot of mosquitoes is fairly limited, so I wouldn't be too concerned about them down in the Kalahari. In the Delta itself, up in Vumbra and the Linyanti, there will be more insects and mosquitoes, but the rooms are really, really well secured. They've got a lot of mosquito netting. They've got fans in them, and we provide insect repellent. So Peaceful Sleep is about the best one out there, I always say. A little spray of that on your ankles and behind your neck is normally good enough to keep most of the insects away. There are more insects at this time of the year, but this is not something that should be deterring people. It's just a case of being slightly better prepared and understanding how to keep yourself, I suppose, protected from these insects. So a little bit of mosquito repellent goes a long way. Things like citronella work fantastically. And just knowing more about the area that you're going into. Attached to mosquitoes come the frog species, come the bird life, so it's all a long chain of events. And I certainly don't think you'll be concerned with the amount of insects or mosquitoes that you might be seeing.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. One more thing on people's minds, and then I want to move on to questions about wildlife. This is about yellow fever shot. If you go to Zambia, this person understands that there's been quite a bit of back and forth on the recommendations for that and wondered if you might have any new information.
Yeah, there has been a fair amount of back and forth on the yellow fever recommendations. Most of it is actually coming out of Zambia back into South Africa or vice versa. The latest recommendation is that it's probably worth having the yellow fever shot or jab. It's one of those things that you have once and it lasts you for 10 years. Is there a major concern for yellow fever? No, I would say not really a concern. But on any of these things, the best thing to do is always to chat to your local doctor, your GP, or your travel clinic and find out their recommendations. I personally had the yellow fever jab just last year. I didn't feel it, and in fact to the point where I actually asked the doctor if he actually gave me the jab. And it's just something that I carry with me. So, at the moment, between the South African government and the Zambian government, there is a lot of backwards and forwards. and that recommendation somehow seems to change as fast as the weather conditions in Cape Town, which is quite dramatic.
Okay, thank you. Oh boy, this question, let's move on to wildlife. This question is one that I'm sure you get every now and then, and it is, can you guarantee the big five during this trip?
Okay, well, what's important straight away is remember that Botswana, while it does have a rhino population, it is very, very well protected. So there were no rhinoceros in Botswana until about 10 years ago when private companies and organizations that partner with natural habitat started to relocate rhinoceros back into the Delta. So there are rhinoceros in Botswana, but they are quite difficult to see. The opportunity for rhino is when we're in Zambia at Takalea. There is a fantastic rhino activity that we do lead, and so hopefully you get to see rhinoceros when you're in Takalea. I will be perfectly open and honest with you. This is a very, very wild environment. It's uncontrollable. We can't control the animals any more than we can control the weather. But the guides and the teams that you work with on the ground have been doing this for as long as 10 or 15 or 20 years. They know the ins and outs of the areas, and they will work those areas and try and ensure that you see as much of the animals that you want to see. The only guarantee you have of seeing the big five is if you're going to go to your local zoo or zoo in South Africa. There is no guarantee on safari. Are your chances really, really, really good? The answer to that question is yes. So while I can't say yes 100% we're going to guarantee that you'll see the big five, there's a very, very strong chance that you'll get to see all of those amazing creatures that you want to.
Wonderful. And then there was a question about whether you can still view cheetahs with all the big predators that are also in the area.
Great question. The Kalahari in the beginning is the best terrain for cheetah. Designed and built for speed, they need big open areas, so good chance of seeing cheetah when you're down in the Kalahari. I think, one of the last trips I did, we saw 6 different sightings of cheetah in a 3-day period, so a total of 12 different cheetah through 6 sightings in that area. So the Kalahari is renowned for its cheetah viewing. And then up in Vumbura, there's also some big open grassland area, which is also very, very good opportunity for cheetah. So you'll find that the predators do cross over a lot. They do move within the same areas. Cheetah being exceptionally vulnerable when it comes to the other predators like leopard and lion. But yes, you do stand a very good chance of seeing cheetah in both the Kalahari and up in the Vumbura concession as well.
Okay. And then what about, the question is about how much time is spent during the day on game viewing and whether there's ever any night drives.
Yeah, very good question. Most of the time you're going to spend, on average, I'd say between 6 and 7 hours during the day out on a game drive or a game activity of some sort. The bulk of that happening in the morning between sunrise and kind of mid-morning 10:30, and in the afternoon from sort of 3:30 in the afternoon through to about 7 o'clock in the evening. Most of the afternoon safaris actually push out and extend into the evening. So we will spend, on average, 45 minutes to an hour with the spotlight out looking for some of those unique nocturnal animals. The jack will come out, things like spotted hyena, and the predators become sometimes more active at that time of day as well. So leopard are notorious nocturnal hunters with fantastic vision. So on the average day in safari, you're probably going to spend anywhere from 6 to 8 hours on game drives and activities, and of that probably, I would say, an hour to maybe an hour and a half at night after a sundowner on the vehicle, heading back in the direction of camp, but with a spotlight and seeing what's coming out at night. So we try and give you the best of both worlds.
Okay, thank you. There's a question about whether these animals are in a game reserve or whether they are out and free.
Yes, well, that's what makes Botswana so special. The areas that we're going into are unique and remote, and they are unfenced. So this wildlife can move, and it can move between a variety of areas. The areas that we're going into are national parks and game reserves, protected areas with protected wildlife, but they are unfenced. So it makes it really, really special. You're seeing free-roaming wild game that's not controlled by man, it's not controlled by fence, and it really can just go about its daily movements and habitat as it so chooses. So the game is not controlled, it's not monitored, it's not followed, it's not fenced, and yeah, as I said, the areas that we're going through are a combination of national parks, protected wildlife areas, and private concessions. Just touching on that, one of the most unique aspects of this particular trip is that the wildlife areas that you're actually traveling into are limited and they are private. And that means that you don't have to share them with a vast array of other vehicles or people. So you could be in a sighting as one vehicle and have a leopard stalking an impala in front of you and have no other vehicles around you. And that's something very, very special. You can go into some of the public areas in the parks and people can drive their own vehicles. You can be on a safari vehicle, and there's a whole array of different styles of safari. You could be then one of as many as 15 or 20 vehicles. So in this specific safari in the areas we go into, we are in private concessions, meaning it's really remote and it's really, really pristine.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. I could sit and ask you, I have so many questions here that I could probably spend another half hour with you trying to get all of the questions answered, but unfortunately we only have about 3 minutes left. So I just have I'm going to whittle it down to 2 last questions, and then I'll turn it back over to you for anything you'd like to share. So this one, what is the most amazing thing you've ever seen on safari?
Well, to explain that one, I probably need about 2.5 hours. Well, there are so many. As a guide, we are so spoiled with the amount of time that we have in these areas and the opportunities that we get to sit and see. And to try and pull together one specific aspect is very, very difficult. I think one of the highlights of my career was, as I said, tracking my first leopard and finding it on foot. It was the most exhilarating and awe-inspiring moment that I've had. But each and every day and each and every aspect on safari it's like a new channel. It's like you've discovered something completely different, and you might have driven that road before, but you never ever know what's coming out of the next corner. So seeing things like a leopard with newborn cubs, or coming across baby elephants that are only a week old and their ears are still pink behind them, and they don't have control over their trunk properly, is always really, really special. I think for me, one of the biggest highlights of my guiding career to this point was watching a female leopard pretty much charge directly at a huge male lion that was coming to try and catch her cubs. And predators don't eat each other, but they will try and kill each other so that there's no competition for food. And it was just amazing to see this female cheetah, who was so small and so light in comparison to this massive male lion. She literally was so confident. She charged down off the termite mound, ran straight towards this lion, and as he got close enough to draw his attention, she just turned. And the speed of a cheetah versus a male lion is it's kind of like an SUV versus a Porsche or Ferrari. And as she turned and the lion got close enough, she just opened up and literally just left them in a trail of dust. And that gave her cubs time to disappear off the termite mound and go and hide in the vegetation. And we spent 15, 20 minutes following this female, and she did a huge loop and made sure it was really, really safe, came back and was reunited with these 3 little fluff balls that had been hiding in the long grass waiting for mom to come back and find them. So there are so many. As I said, I could tell stories all night.
Well, there are some people who want to hear more of your stories because they want to travel with you in 2014. So are you going to be leading any of the trips that you mentioned?
At this stage, it's actually, I'm not too sure. There are trips that I am potentially and will be guiding, possibly, but those are details that we'll have to get back to them on and look at the specific trips that they're actually interested in. So. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Simon. I want to let everybody know there are a lot of questions that we didn't get to. We see them all, and we thank you so much for your questions, and we will be sending those along to our staff so that they can get in touch and give you the answers that you're looking for. But Simon, now I'd like to turn it back over to you for anything else you'd like to share before we say goodbye.
Well, firstly, I'd just like to say thank you again to everyone out on the other side of the globe for taking the time out of, I'm sure, what's very busy schedules and daily happenings to listen to me telling you briefly what can be expected on these amazing experiences, and specifically on this Kalahari Delta and beyond trip. But again, just firming up that, make no mistake, if you think that you'll only come on safari once to Africa, you'll be fooled. We refer to it as the bush bug. and that's not a real life bug or an insect, but the spirit of Africa and the spirit of safaring and the amazement of these wilderness areas and wildlife will keep you coming back on safari time and time again. This is an ultimate trip. This is a difficult one to beat, so yeah, I really do, as that last slide says, I really do hope to see you guys, all of you in Africa at some stage in the future. I have no doubt it'll completely blow everyone's minds and expectations, and you won't be able to stop talking about it, that's for sure.
Well, my thanks as well, Simon. We're delighted to have been able to spend time with you today. And don't forget, everybody, that we have another webinar coming up in a couple weeks, and we'll get you information on that. So thanks again for joining us. Thank you, Simon and Megan, for all your behind-the-scenes work. And with that, we'll say good day and conclude our webinar. Goodbye now.